Alright, in this video we are going to talk about two concepts that are very important to electronics, and I say that a lot, but everything is important in electronics. We are going to talk about signed numbers, as well as order of operations. And it's going to be very important that we understand what the order of operations are, how we use them, the priorities, all that kind of stuff. If not, we run into big problems, and this is honestly one of my favorite fights to watch on Facebook. It is funny, the people that don't understand or want to use the order of operations. So be aware of that. All right, so signed numbers, like we talked about in the very beginning with our number line, we can have numbers that have a positive or a negative polarity. And then they also have a magnitude. That magnitude is going to be how far away are those numbers from our center point, our reference, which we're going to call 0. When we're looking at values like this, when we have a -5 and a +5, what this means is we have the same magnitude, so the same distance or magnitude from our reference, which in this case is 0. So -5 plus 5. The only difference is one is going to be technically considered smaller and one's going to be technically considered larger. So between the two of them, we can look at those distances, and negative and positive just really means we're going in one direction versus the other direction. Opposites go away from each other. Positive is the opposite of negative. Negative is the opposite of positive. So we've still got those same options. What we look at too is when we have these signed numbers, sometimes the math has to take a little bit of extra steps and a little bit extra thought to go through with them. So when we're dealing with addition and subtraction, the order matters, and the sign of the numbers matter. So we have to make sure we take that into account. So if we take this equation, a -5 plus a +3. So what we're doing is, one of the things we can do is go back to our number line and look. So here is our reference point at 0. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here's my negative numbers. So I got -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. And here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the positive. So what this problem here is saying is my order matters. So this -5 is my starting spot. So I'm starting here at -5. And once I go from this -5, I'm going to be adding, sorry, this computer wants to not let me draw a circle. So I'm going to start at -5. -5 means I'm going to add, which I'm going to increase this number and bring it up closer to 0. So I'm making it bigger. So this -5 is going to go up 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3, putting it right here at my -2. So there is my -5 plus 2, plus 3, moving it up to my -2 value. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Another one to look at is if we have a 5 minus 3. So again, if I'm looking at my number line and starting, I have my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here's my 0 point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. -1, -2, -3, -4, 5, and 6. So this one is if I'm starting here at 5, and I'm subtracting 3, so I'm making this number smaller. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. That's going to drop me off into the 2 position. So my new number will be right here at 2. The tricky thing is when we get negative numbers and we start taking away from those. So if I have a negative 5 minus 3, again, I'm going to look at my number line. So I'm going to use this one that I've already written up here. So up here, I'm going to start at my negative 5 right here. Then a minus 3 means I'm making this number smaller. We have to get that into our head that as we go negative, the bigger the number, the bigger the magnitude, the actual number in it, the smaller that number actually gets. So my negative 5 is going to start here, and I'm going to go back 1, 2, 3 places. So here is my negative 7, here is my negative 8. So I have starting with negative 5, subtracting 3, making it smaller, which is then in turn going to put it into a negative 8. Now, as we get through with these again, the order of them are going to matter. We have to make sure we pay attention. What am I adding? Where am I starting? What am I subtracting? Am I making this number bigger or am I making this number smaller? And that will depend on what's going on and where we are at as far as the values and equations that we're going to be running through with the electronics. Now in electronics, we can have positive numbers and we can have negative numbers. So we just need to be aware of that as we're working through these values. So that's addition and subtraction. Pretty simple. Multiplication and division is the next one we're going to look at. So multiplication and division. This one is a little bit easier as far as terms of what do I need to do and how do I need to look at it. It really comes down to the number of positives and negatives that we have involved. So if I'm looking at my values and I have a positive and I multiply that by a positive, my answer is going to be positive. If I have, or if we divide it, if I have a number, a positive number divided by another positive number, I'm going to get a positive number on the output. If I have a negative number when I multiply or divide, so I can put that in there, multiply or divide, when I do that, I'm going to get a negative number. That negative is going to carry through. Again, if my first term's negative, I multiply or I divide, and this guy's positive, I'm still going to have a negative. If this guy's a negative, multiply or divide against a negative, my answer is going to be positive because those negative signs will actually cancel each other out. So the rule of thumb with multiplication and division is if I have an odd number of negatives, come on, go away. If I had an odd number of negatives, that means my answer is negative. If I have an even number of negatives, then my answer is positive. Which makes it really easy when we get through this. So when we start dividing and doing some long division and things like that, I can kind of cut down some of the time that I'm working with this and just make it go a little bit faster if I look at the number of terms. So instead of just numbers here, this is my number of terms. And terms are values that are separated by a multiplication, by an addition or subtraction sign. And so we can go in there and look. If I have 16 terms and I have an odd number of negatives, then my answer is going to be negative. If I have an even number in there, it's going to be positive. And with that, that's pretty simple when it comes down to those options for this specific task. We're going to be doing a lot of multiplication and a lot of division when we get into electronics, and remembering this rule is just going to keep our numbers from getting completely screwed up. All right, now that we've covered significant signed numbers, not significant, I was looking back at my other notes, our signed numbers, now we have to start to put that into play as well as understanding the orders of operations for all of these things. So order of operations includes our signs, our signed numbers, the number of turns, all that kind of stuff. It's all included. So when we get in here to our order of operation, we have a little thing that we can remember. So Let's switch pens. So we're going to go orders of operation. Our orders of operation is going to be as follows. So our acronym is PEMDAS, PEMDAS. What that stands for, so PEMDAS is parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So this is the order we want to do things. Now, yes, a lot of people will say multiplication and division are basically the same level and it doesn't matter. Addition and subtraction are the same level, and so either one doing those first doesn't matter. And yes, technically that is right, it doesn't matter. But as long as you're following these and going through this order and doing it every single time, you'll end up with the correct answers. And again, depending on your circumstance, your equation, sometimes it actually is easier to do a division problem first because then we eliminate something before moving on to the next step, and then we have a smaller or smaller number of terms or magnitudes of values that we have to then multiply together. So there are some caveats to that. Multiplication and division, again, those two are basically on the same level. They can be done either or, and then addition and subtraction can be done either or. And then the other general rule of thumb is with the order of operations, we're going to go left to right, and then through priority level first. So priority level, and if we have multiple parts and multiple expectations of these or instances of the same ones, then we go to the left to right to follow through with our order. So depending on how we have these problems, we're going to be looking at these different types of examples and things to do as far as how I need to treat and look at my numbers. Let's see, where do they go? Find them. All right. We'll have some more examples of that later, and in the homeworks and things like that we can follow through. But some of the examples I was thinking of right off to the start. So if I had 5 squared plus 2 parentheses squared divided by 19, and then we'll say this whole thing is going to be subtracted by 3. So as we're looking through this problem, we got to go through and figure out what's going on. So the first thing we need to do is our parentheses. So the parentheses is going to be these values right here. So my first step is I'm going to take 5 squared plus 2. I'm going to look inside that parenthesis. Now, inside of this parenthesis, I go back because now I have a higher order of a math function that I have to worry about. So inside the parenthesis, I have an exponent and I have an addition. So I got to go back over here and look. Exponents are higher than addition, so I have to do this exponential equation first. So 5 squared gives me 25. Then I can go back and do my plus 2. So I end up with this set of parentheses is equal to a 27. Now I can come back and plug that into my original equation. So here's my parentheses times 27. Now that's going to be squared divided by 19, and then the whole quantity minus 3. So then I come back and look. Okay, I got those parentheses taken care of. I don't have anything else out in the front of it with those parentheses. So then at this point, the parentheses will drop off and I'm left with another exponent. So now I have to be able to take this new equation and then convert it and multiply it in the same order using my order of operations. Now, the next step is we have to take that 27 and square it. So when we pull out our calculators and work on that, we're going to have 27 squared is going to give us 729 over my 19 minus 3. Okay, so then the next step, I've got division and subtraction left. Division is higher than subtraction, so I have to take care of this first. So my 729 divided by 19 gives me a decimal. So I'm going to get 38.368. And then that I'm going to subtract 3 from. And my final answer, when it all comes down to it and everything is typed in correctly, I get 35.368. And again, like I said, we're going to carry it out 3 decimals based on what I explained earlier in the class. So there is our answer at 35.368. Now, when you're typing this into your calculator, you need to figure out how your calculator wants this entered in. One of the biggest things that you can do is make sure you're using a lot of parentheses when it comes time to that. Make it so that the parentheses are almost second nature. Anytime you have a squared, put a set of parentheses in, things like that. That way, as you're entering it in, you'll make sure that the right order of operations gets taken care of in your calculator. If it's left to its own device, it will figure out what it wants to do and then go from there. So again, that's just kind of word to the wise. Keep that in mind about where you want those to go. And that right there is just kind of a quick summary again of order of operations. Again, this is something that you should know and that you should be able to remember and go through the homeworks without any problems. You got to understand this stuff before we move on too far.